He knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Supervillians Explored. Today I'll be giving you all a very special treat. In light of all of the excitement and hype for the upcoming Captain America movie, I've decided to dedicate this one video to the main man himself, Captain America's ultimate arch nemesis, the Red Skull. There have been 3 different men who have assumed the identity of the Red Skull. And technically, the first person to ever appear in the comics, in the print, chronologically as the Red Skull, was a guy named George Maxson, who was an American spy for the Nazis. But he was simply an agent working for the real Red Skull, Johann Schmidt. Johann Schmidt was born in a small German village early in the 20th century, and his mother died giving birth to him, which caused his highly abusive alcoholic father to blame the kid himself for killing his wife. Eventually, Johann's father would end up murdering himself and leave Johann as an orphan. And because of having no parents as a little kid and having no moral guidance to show him around or show him the ropes of how life actually worked, his life as a little kid was very hard. He mostly got by from stealing from rich people, and he developed a very good sense of street smarts in order to survive. Eventually, he ended up as a hotel serviceman, and in the early days of Adolf Hitler's Third Reich, he ended up serving a dinner to the Fuhrer himself while he was cussing out and bitching at one of his Gestapo agents. When Adolf Hitler actually saw Johann Schmidt standing there in total terror from him, he actually saw that Schmidt would make a very, very good Nazi officer. So out of that, he decided to appoint Johann Schmidt as Hitler's right-hand man. And to promote him as being the main head of the Nazi army, Hitler appointed Johann Schmidt with a very special moniker, an icon, a symbol that would emphasize just how serious and how scary the Nazis could actually be. And so to do this, he gave Johann Schmidt a very grotesque and hideous red skull mask that he would always wear in the presence of the other soldiers. Johann Schmidt adopted the identity of the Red Skull to be the symbol of absolute terror and power, symbolizing Nazi Germany's domination of Europe. This was before America had actually entered World War II. And so when America decided that they would declare war on Nazi Germany, they decided that they needed to create another type of symbol of their own to counteract the Red Skull. The Red Skull was operating so that while Adolf Hitler could rally the support of the German people and a great sense of morale to boost the motivation of the Nazi army, Johann Schmidt himself would be the person leading the Nazis to victory. And eventually, Project Rebirth is commenced and Captain America is born. Steve Rogers is given his experimental super soldier serum and is made into the American patriotic fighting machine known as Captain America. And many times during World War II, Captain America and the Red Skull would, along with his sidekick Bucky, would clash again and again, with Red Skull developing even more plans to destroy America as well as the rest of the world and ensure Germany's dominance. Eventually, the final fight between the Red Skull and Captain America happens about towards the end of World War II, when it was looking very bad for Nazi Germany, and it looked like defeat was imminent. Captain America and the Red Skull got into a very bad fist fight, and it ended with the Red Skull falling underneath a collapsing building, and he was presumably killed by being crushed by the rubble. But it turned out that that building was the home to a very strong experimental gas that put the Red Skull into suspended animation. And while later on Captain America himself would also be put into suspended animation by falling off of a rocket and into the Antarctic. About 40 years later, or a long time later, when Captain America is an established member of the Avengers, the Red Skull is revived. He's discovered by the well-known terrorist organization AIM, and he basically shows himself to Captain America again, and they resume their old hatreds. However, at one point in the Red Skull's life, the experimental gas that had kept him alive during all those years that he had been in suspended animation was also completely wore off, and his age started to catch up with him. And so he pretty much aged into a very old man of about 80 years old. So because he realized that death was near, he decided he would trick Captain America into one final battle. He ended up kidnapping several of Captain America's friends, and he used the Cosmic Cube to age Steve Rogers into his natural age in order to even the odds between the Skull and Rogers. Eventually, Rogers beats him in hand-to-hand combat, but refuses to kill him despite Schmidt's request. And then Schmidt just ends up dying in Steve's arms, and Steve is brought back to his regular age. This wouldn't be the last of the Red Skull, though, because another resurrected Nazi scientist by the name of Arnim Zola somehow managed to preserve the Red Skull's brain, and so he created a whole new body for the Red Skull to inhabit. This body was, in fact, a clone of Steve Rogers' body. So he implanted the Red Skull's brain into Captain America's body, and the Red Skull was reborn and resurrected. And so he pretty much decided that the old ways of Nazi socialism were pretty much obsolete, and so he decided that his new world plans and schemes would be involved with destroying the American political system from within. So he decided to run for election and become a major politician, calling himself John Smith, which is the English translation of his real German name, Johann Schmidt. Long story short, he appoints a new guy to be Captain America when he exposes to the media when he frames Captain America in the media for being a criminal. So he appoints and in order to do this, he appoints a new person to be Captain America named John Walker, who would later become the hero U.S. agent. John Walker, the Red Skull basically plays with Walker's mind and sends him into all kinds of dangerous temper tantrums, and he records this footage to try to make Captain America look bad. Long story short, John Walker and Steve Rogers end up in a fistfight in front of the cloned Captain America. And the Red Skull decides to smoke a cigarette, which is actually laced with a deadly dust pollen that contained a deadly dust pollen. The pollen accidentally sprayed in the Skull's face, and that ended up turning the clone Captain America Red Skull's face into a real Red Skull. Yeah, quite ironic, I must say. And that's pretty much. Sorry, I got cut off there. What I was trying to say is that's pretty much Red Skull's origin in a nutshell. Recently in the comics, the Red Skull was murdered again by Bucky Barnes himself, the Winter Soldier, who was brainwashed by the Soviets. And one thing I also forgot to mention is that there was another Red Skull, a third one, who established himself as the Red Skull shortly after the end of World War II during the 1950s. The difference is this Red Skull, his name was Albert Malik, and he was a Russian communist. Eventually, when Johann Schmidt is revived, he basically sends an assassin after this fake Red Skull and kills him. And also, again, recently in the comics, the Red Skull was murdered by the Winter Soldier, so he tried using the Cosmic Cube to switch minds with a Soviet general named Alexander Lukin. He takes over Lukin's body completely, and he orchestrates the death of Captain America. After a lot of really confusing BS, the Red Skull, he's killed again, but then Arnim Zola creates a brand new robotic body for him to be in. And that's really all I want to say about the current events regarding the Red Skull. Yeah, and I have to say, this looks awesome. I don't know any other way to say it. This just looks awesome. This is the perfect design for the Red Skull for a live-action movie, and I am psyched to see how Hugo Weaving plays the role. The Red Skull is one of my absolute favorite comic book villains, and I am psyched to see this movie and psyched to see him portrayed so well. Stay tuned for the next one.